This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's good that you were aware of that. Again, there's nothing wrong with not wanting to have children. There is nothing wrong with that. It's not for everyone.
No.
When you first become a parent, when you're surprised, oh shit, I'm having a child. It's scary as hell. But I think you would have figured it out. There's something that does seem to change in a lot of us when it actually happens, but it doesn't for everybody.
Right.
And it's be impossible to say or no with that. Let me ask you this, Shavaun. When this went to Judge Dwight Moore, who I know I've been giving a ton of shit to, and I think deservedly so, he was operating under the factor that he was rated low risk after his mandatory counseling or training or whatever and how to be a parent. The boxes were checked as attentive and insightful. What the hell does low risk mean if this guy almost murdered his first kid?
What it says to me is that somebody had a checklist of supposed risk factors, and was this the county agency that was tasked with doing an assessment of the guy? That's my guess. And what was this checklist? And again, this is the problem with our piecemeal system. Every county in the country is doing something different for how are they assessing risk. It's not like, oh, well, here's the one checklist that's going to, be valid. Because I think from what I can ascertain, we don't have anything really that you can look at and say, well, this is the perfect child abuse risk assessment here. Yeah. There are certainly cases where if a person is delusional, that's a risk factor, psychotic, risk factor, actively abusing substances, risk factor. I mean, we can just kind of use common sense and see what things are going to be red flags and put that on a checklist. But for whatever reason, there was nothing, again, this was not something that had any clinical significance from my point of view, whatever this checklist was. So he was compliant, he was polite, he jumped through the hoops. If they told him he needed to go to a parenting class, he said, fine, he did it. Okay, that really doesn't carry any weight with me as far as whether a person is going to reoffend or not. So again, it speaks to me of a flawed system, a flawed checklist that's probably not valid for what they're wanting it to be used for. And again, a piecemeal system where in this very big country, everybody's doing something different everywhere.
And in systems like this, I would, again, everyone's different, but I would assume in a good chunk of them, people's employment as the individual who's maintaining the program, who's functionally moving these people through, and they have the pen that's checking the box, probably depends on people coming out of this program as low risk. The freedom of these very people in these programs depend on them coming out as low risk. So it's not hard to game a system where both people in the room have an incentive for that person to come out with a certain check behind their box that says low risk. One doesn't want to lose a job. The other wants their freedom. And if it's just, okay, we're going to go through this module now, don't beat the shit out of your kids. Did everybody get that? Okay, I know it's more in depth than that, but when you have it, the deck's kind of stacked right away of, well, let's get everybody out of here in low risk. There really isn't a lot of incentive to really get down to the nitty gritty and go, no, this person's not qualified. I'm glad you sent them here, but they are certainly not qualified to go have children. Or is my assumption on that completely off?
No, I think you're right. There's just this system that pushes people through because it's the easiest thing to do. Back in the 90s, I was in private practice in California, and I was working a lot with children. And I, for a time, had a contract with the local child welfare agency where they had kids that were in their system, and they needed someone to do individual and family therapy with those kids. And occasionally I would take some of those cases on. And so I wasn't actually an employee of the child welfare system. I was in private practice, but I worked with the kids. And there was one case in particular that I worked with for about 5 years, a little boy who had been extremely abused by a mother. He had been taken away from mother, placed with his biological father, and was thriving and was doing so well. And I worked with him individually, worked with the father, and met with he and his mother. And there was so much wrong. And every part of my being said that this lady was dangerous and was not safe. And I wrote report after report after report after report. I can't even remember how many times I was subpoenaed into court to testify. I was fighting the idea of unsupervised visits for him with her. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that she should not have custody of him, but definitely should not even have unsupervised visits. There were just so many things wrong. Mm-hmm. And after 5 years, the court held off for 5 years, but after 5 years, she was given unsupervised visitation for a weekend with him. And the first weekend that she had him, now, she didn't intentionally kill him, but she plowed into the back of a semi-truck driving with him. She came out fine. He was decapitated. And I went to the funeral, and I was so distraught. I had nightmares about that child and that situation for years. And that was the case that I stopped working with kids. It was after that. I just said, I just can't work with kids anymore. And it still affects me, this is decades later. And so I think if you have somebody working in a situation like that, who knows the child, who has an in-depth knowledge of this person, a checklist isn't gonna be the thing that you're going on. I mean, if somebody was working with this father and knew him really well, had ever been in his home, they would have been able to say, I don't have a good feeling about this guy having another baby here, and just letting go of the reins.
And the question then exists, why do you exist in the equation if they're not going to listen to you? Yeah. If they're not going to take the input of the expert who I mean, it's not your child, so it's not that you don't have a dog in the fight. You are emotionally invested with the child. So I'm not trying to take away from that whatsoever. But if they're not going to take the advice of someone, a third party on the outside who didn't give birth to the child, I guess I should say, but genuinely cares and is genuinely saying this is not okay. But then we're giving the authority to someone who has no education and no knowledge in the department for which you have studied your whole life, and then somebody else gets to decide what your opinion is worth. This is not a system that's remotely functioning. Again, it's like, okay, well, our new director of, or our new head of surgery here, well, he played operation a lot as a child, and since then he's been working at the local Family Video, which has been closed down for the last 7 years. And he's going to be the head of surgery now. But he really he's read a couple books in his life, and he's watched a lot of television. But we're going to let him decide the weight of your findings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was really a life-altering process for me, watching that whole thing happen. And And I have a lot of compassion. You and I have talked before about the difficulties being a CPS worker. I have compassion for the workers. And at the same time, we'll hear cases where, why wasn't that flagged? Why wasn't that followed up on? And we all get so angry and upset about it, Well,
and oftentimes the answer at the end of the day is not because people didn't want to, it's because there's not people to do it.
They don't have enough. They have hundreds of kids on their caseloads, and I've had a lot of those folks as clients for PTSD induced by their job and the things that they'd seen in their work, and their sense of powerlessness and not able to make the impact that they wanted to make. And it's a mess.
In America, we seem to have a system that is not equipped to do the job that it should be at all in those capacities. And rather than fix that problem, rather than go, let's get more people qualified in here. Let's have an army of people for this. Let's go to war against this shit rather than apocalypse now. Let's go to war against this and go and help these children. But we don't do that. We end up just deciding, you know what? We're better at having faith in shit. So let's go have some false faith in the goodness of people rather than actually getting good people in here to help the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm glad we solved all of America's problems today in the child
right.
welfare system. But certainly a light that just needs to keep being shown on this shit. I know it's an icky topic. People don't like to hear about it. And if you have your family and everything's great and wonderful, this is somebody else's problem until it's yours, until your kid gets involved with somebody that's not the greatest, until someone you know, someone you care about ends up in a situation like this. Oh, it doesn't happen to my family. The fuck it doesn't. Dig a little deeper. You may not find everything to be so rosy. And more people need to be screaming about this. It's insane that this is how our system works.
Yep.
And it's all right in front of us. It really is. Shavaun Scott, as always, thank you so much for coming on and hearing us rant and bringing us back into reality and giving your insight. It's always a pleasure. Her books, and I saw somebody in the comments said that they read it too, Nightbird, your memoir, and they said it was a great read. It really is. I've read it. Stacey's read it. Very, very powerful going in to your life and your experiences and the abuse and the survivor story that you have. And of course, The Minds of Mass Killers, your other book, also available wherever books are sold. Go check all of that out. You guys, let us know in the comment sections. What's your thoughts on everything we just discussed? Do you have a better way to save the world than we do? Whatever your thoughts are, please tell us in the comment section on YouTube. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski wherever you are to find us, and also do press subscribe. That's going to wrap up today's edition of Hidden Killers Live. For Todd, for Stacey, for Shavaun, I'm Tony Brueski. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.